sermon and their life were permanently changed? No. Oh, okay. I'll see if I can do a bit better tonight. This is going to sink slowly to the... Let's go right down as far as we go. That's it. Good. I don't like that. Roadies. I need roadies with a table. Yes, thank you. I'll put my password in while we're waiting. Now, while I'm setting up here, if you'd like to read the words that are on the screen, that will be a good start. I'm going to talk about disappointment. Now, Steve Atkins made this look so easy. Right, if you can't read, I'll help you out. I am disappointed. This is John Ortberg. I've never actually read any of his stuff, but I came across this quote in some stuff I was reading. I am disappointed that I still love God so little and sin so much. I'm capable of dismaying amounts of jealousy if somebody succeeds more visibly than I do. I am disappointed at my capacity to be small and petty. I cannot pray for very long without my mind drifting into a fantasy of angry revenge over some past slight I thought I had long since forgiven, or some grandiose fantasy of achievement. Anybody know what grandiose fantasy of achievement means? Sort of big, long words. I think it's sort of when you're dreaming about some real good things that you might want to do. I can convince people that I'm busy and productive, yet I waste large amounts of time watching television. And though I'm aware of how far I fall short, sometimes it doesn't even bother me. Holly, I might pick on you if you talk while I'm talking. What was I saying, Holly? That's right. Though I am aware of how far I fall short, sometimes it doesn't even bother me. I'm disappointed by my lack of disappointment. Could anybody have written those words themselves? Does anybody go, yes, that's me? Well, when I read it, I thought, oh, yeah, I could have wrote that, yeah. It's, so... I want to look at disappointment, because disappointment, I might come back to this slide in a minute. Disappointing is usually an adjective. Can anybody tell me what an adjective is? A describing word, very good. A describing word. An adjective is we'll just do a very quick English lesson here. An adjective is a word that modifies the noun by limiting, qualifying or specifying. That's describing, right? A big tree. The big is the adjective. Otherwise it would be a tree. Put big in there, it's a big tree. It's an adjective. A long race. An amazing sermon. Might need to be a boring sermon, but it's the describing word. A disappointing performance. So disappointing can be an adjective, can be describing Holly when she's talking and texting. Oh, okay. Yeah. Disappointing was originally a verb. What's a verb? A doing word. I've even got that written right there. A doing word. See? I climb and I descend. I rise and I fall. I save and I spend and I appoint and I disappoint. Disappoint. Many times in our lives, our disappointments stem from our disappointment of God. Anybody confused? No, everybody understands. That's good. I'll go home. What I'm doing here is very cleverly, I hope, playing the adjective and the verb of disappointment. Okay? I'm going to be talking about disappointing God from where he should be appointed and how that makes us disappointed. Let's see if it works. I sort of thought about it this morning. I thought, yeah, I think that works. But if it doesn't, I'll give you some Bible verses and you can read those as well. This is God's appointment. This is a verse that shows where God should be, where his appointment in our lives should be. And he said to him, that's Jesus. Anybody know where this verse comes from? Anybody put this in context? Anybody know what context means? It means where it came from, what was happening either side of the verse.
Is it when the man said, "How can I get to heaven?"
That's a different bit. It was when the man said, "That's all right, it's all right, you had to go, nobody else did," which is very good. It's from where he says, which of the commandments is the most important? And Jesus says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. Okay? That's God's appointed place for us to be, being loved by with all our heart and all our soul and all our mind. But how often do we disappoint God and love other things with our heart, soul and mind much more? Anybody think of something they love more than God?
Selfish sort of person, like you'd say like a person like Hitler. How was he with God?
Yeah.
At the time he was a ruler of the world. He thought he was at one stage. How was he with God? And it was brought on by selfishness, really.
He was an idolater in many ways, wasn't he? And well, that's a different subject, but yes, Hitler's a very long thing to talk about. But anyone here loves something more than God? No? Good. Good. We all love God the most. I don't believe it. Maybe I'm the only one here who actually sometimes likes breakfast more than God. Or maybe I'm the only one who really, loves to sit down with a coffee before I pray and then I forget to pray because the coffee is much more lovable. I think we all disappoint God because we all love other things with our heart, mind and soul much more. Saturday newspaper is quite lovable, isn't it? This is God's appointment. What sorrow awaits those who argue with their creator? Does a clay pot argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with the one who shapes it, saying, "Stop, you're doing it wrong"? Does the pot exclaim, "How clumsy you can be"? I reckon that must be Bill. Did anyone hear Bill's phone? Oh, okay, no, he's not here. Does the pot exclaim, "How clumsy can you be"? Again, this is God's appointed place. He's the potter, we're the clay. Does anybody ever think God's got it wrong? Does anybody ever think that's silly, he shouldn't do that? A tsunami goes through Indonesia. What's God thinking? We disappoint God. We appoint ourselves instead of him. And we've got another example. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he cremated them. Not yet, and not if you're saved, maybe one day. Male and female he created them. I don't think I'm a prophet, fortunately. Male and female he created them, so we are made in God's image. But how often do we try and make God fit our image, the way that we want to see God? God can't do that because he's an all-loving God, or God must do that because this, or he can't be like that because I don't understand that. I've always thought if we could understand God, he wouldn't be much of a God, would he? The point is, God has this place in his relationship to us that he's appointed to be, and when we don't relate to him that way, we disappoint him. God is top dog. God should play the central role in our lives. We often disappoint him and appoint ourselves. Does anyone actually, am I tongue twisting here too much for people to understand what I'm talking about? Got the main point? We need to disappoint ourselves from being God. If you cling to your life, you'll lose it, and if you let your life go, you'll save it. Paul was disappointed at his disappointment. He said, I don't really understand myself. For what I want to do is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. We try to keep ourselves out of it, but the self sneaks in. And in 2 Corinthians it says, examine yourselves to see whether you're in the faith. Test yourselves. Or do you not realise this about yourself, that Jesus Christ is in you, unless indeed you fail to meet the test? For you died, I haven't got the reference there, if you died and your life is now hidden in Christ, in God, when Christ who is your life appears, then you also will appear in glory. These verses are there because they're about understanding how we have to fight daily to keep God in his appointed place and not to disappoint God in our lives from where it should be. Paul, he wanted to do what was right, but he recognised that it didn't happen even when he wanted it to. When do I become disappointed? And here we're talking about the adjective disappointed. Anybody disappointed at the moment? Anybody been disappointed today, adjectively speaking? Not verbally speaking. You might have disappointed someone, I suppose. Plans don't work out. You don't get what you want. When people let you down, these are examples. When I'm not happy with myself, it's all about I, me, my, and myself. And that is disappointing God. Taking God out of his place. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So the whole point, if we go back to the start, ting, 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 that one. The whole point that I'm trying to make tonight is this. I'm using the play between the adjective disappointed and the verb of disappointed to emphasise that we need to have God in his right place in our lives. We need to realise that he is God and we are not. We sing that song, don't we? You are God, and how does that one go? Something like that. You're God and I'm not. Is that right? That's actually the words, isn't it? And when we disappoint God, we're bound to be disappointed. That sounded a lot more confusing when I was speaking it than when I was thinking it in my head. Hopefully that hasn't confused you. Hopefully that gives you something to think about. And I think if the band comes up, we will now play our next song.